Down to business now with Ari Rabinovitch from the CityNews Business Center. Hello, Ari.
Hello, Cynthia.
Let's start tonight in the always interesting world of tech, where we are learning more about the financial situation of Google's parent company, Alphabet.
Yes, and it's just another pulse on the tech sector, as well as that of artificial intelligence. And it's tied to so much of the technology that people like you and I and a lot of our viewers likely use every day. If you have a smartphone, you're probably connected to Google in some way. So here's how they performed last quarter. Google's parent company, Alphabet, says that they saw better than expected profits and revenue growth related to its cloud computing business. That's the main growth engine for its artificial intelligence investments, so that gets a check mark from investors. Overall revenue was more than $88 billion US, making for the best sales figure on record for the company. And Cynthia, nearly $66 billion of that was from advertising revenue alone. So some of its biggest ad spaces included on the Google search engine, which also extends to some of the results people might click on, in addition to the ads seen on YouTube videos, other than those with a YouTube premium subscription, of course, which is also a big revenue driver for the company, Cynthia. So investors no doubt like these results.
I'm sure they do. Now to the other end of the alphabet, where Google has been given an exemption in an ongoing fight with the Canadian government. Tell us the latest on this one.
Well, it kind of ties into what we just talked about. So I mentioned here that $66 billion of last quarter's revenue from the company was brought in just from advertising, including on the search engine field. And this is where it ties into what we found out today from the CRTC, the Canada Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission. Essentially, them, along with Ottawa's Parliament Hill, were looking to try to get a cut of some of that revenue that they've been taking by posting news organizations' content on their platforms, like Google search engine, for instance. So the Bill C-18, or the Online News Act, forces these sorts of platforms to comply with those news agencies to give them their fair dues. And essentially what we found out was that the CRTC granted Google an exemption to the bill because they actually have a separate agreement. Google has agreed instead to pay $100 million annually to Canadian news organizations. They're going to get a portion of that money based on the number of full-time journalists employed. Now, Meta Platforms, the parent company of Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and WhatsApp, actually opposes the bill and opted to stop showing content from news outlets. That's why, Cynthia, if you go on Instagram right now, for instance, and look up maybe CityNews, for instance, or 680 News Radio, you're not going to find anything.
Nope, you're not going to find it. This has been an ongoing issue for a while now. All right, we'll see how this all develops down the road. Thanks, Ari.
You got it.
Now, after a tumultuous stretch at fast food giant McDonald's, they've released the latest financial numbers, and our executives under the golden arch is loving it.
It's a good one. Yes. You know what? They actually are not. But a lot of that is due to the fact that they're actually seeing a drop in international sales. A lot of that was led by restaurants in the United Kingdom and in France, while U.S. sales actually increased by 0.33% last quarter. Now, Cynthia, we can't overlook the elephant in the room, that E. coli outbreak from last week. So it's worth noting that it probably did have a financial impact, but that's not represented in this quarter. And so that's probably going to show up in the next quarter's results. But they did draw attention to that, saying that the Quarter Pounder is now back on the menus. This is after the slivered onions were found to be the source of the contamination. Last quarter, McDonald's saw sales overall fall 1.5%. But it's saying to make U.S. customers feel good about going back to McDonald's, they're actually going to extend its value menu options to the end of December, Cynthia. So we'll see how that shows up on next quarter's results.
All right, Ari. Thanks so very much for joining us. Always great to see you.
You as well.